you have the opportunity. So I was actually in a networking meeting. This story will help answer that question, Jim. And sorry for going all over the place here,
right.
but so I was in a networking meeting yesterday with I'm in a couple business owner networking meeting, kind of mastermind. And I was in a small mastermind yesterday with some small business owners in Baltimore, which I'm in the Maryland area. And there's a guy who's a lawyer, and he's working for a law firm right now, and he wants to go out on his own. And he's in the meeting, and we meet once a month, and every single month we talk about kind of what's going on in our life, whether it's good or bad, or if we need advice. And for the last 6 months, he's been talking about going out on his own, how much he hates where he works, all these different things. And I'm sitting across there, and I looked at him and I go, this is what my dad told me, by the way. Again, my dad, there's a lot of great things with my dad, but I remember when I went to him and I said, Dad, I have this opportunity to run a painting company. My mom actually told me not to. She said, Matt, what are you doing? Go back and work at White Castle, or go get an internship, go do the traditional path. And luckily I was smart enough not to listen to her. I love my mom, but I was lucky enough not to listen to her. My dad looked at me and goes, what's the worst that can happen? And so that's always my quote. And I looked at the guy yesterday and I go, dude, if you leave and you go out there for 1 year and you try to build your own law firm, and this guy's successful already. And I asked him, I go, how much money do you have in your bank account? He's like, dude, I'm like, you're fine. There's no risk for you at all.
Yeah.
To take a year and go after this. And he's still holding himself back. And what I see a lot of people do is they're so afraid of uncertainty that they're willing to suffer. They're willing to suffer at their jobs. They're willing to suffer in their life. And I'll tell you right now, just take the risk. You're going to live till you're 70, 80, 90. Some of us are going to live in the hundreds. You have a long life. You can recover. And I've had failures in my life, a ton of them. And I'll tell you right now, when I look back at those failures, I laugh at them now because they're great stories. They actually are really cool stories now. And in the time, don't get me wrong, heck yeah, they weren't fun. But you look back at them now, and you can't barely remember the pain you were feeling because it doesn't matter 5 years from now. So anybody out there that's thinking about starting a business or taking a business model that's already created, taking a business model that's already created, a franchise or something of that nature, I actually recommend it as long as you've done your research and you know that other people have been profitable before. And as long as they've been profitable and you have a skill set that can do it, then there's no risk for you. Go after it, try it out for a year. And if you fail, who cares? You can always go back and get a job. That was always my philosophy. I can always get a job. I can always sell something. I can always sell something for someone else if I have to. And there's no risk. So I always looked at my life and I said, I have zero risk if I take this risk, because if I have to go make money, guess what? I'll go get a job, make money, pay my bills, and I will never go hungry. But the way I always looked at it for anybody out there is don't be afraid to step out, just even for a year, and go after it and say yes, like try it. And you're going to find that you're going to be a lot more happy. I was sitting down with a guy who sold a business for $2 million yesterday, successful guy. And he looked at me and he just started up a new business. He actually started up a franchise. It's funny that we're on this topic. He started up a training franchise called Sandler Training. It's like a sales training program system. And he bought into it. He got an office launched. And he looked at me, and he's in his late 40s. He's got 4 kids. They're, I think, 12 to 21, somewhere in that age range. And he's like, I didn't realize how unhappy I was until after I sold my business. And it wasn't a fun sell for him either. He, it took him 2 years, 2.5 years from the time he decided to sell to when he was actually able to finally walk away from the company. And he made a ton of money off of it, but he's like, I was unhappy for like 10 years of my life because I was so afraid to leave. And he's like, I wish I would have done what I'm doing now 10 years ago, but I just got so used to, doing it. And also the pressure of having, private school and paying, living in the, you go buy the $2 million home, and now you're living in that world. So you got to make sure you have money, and you get kind of trapped. And so I would just say, don't be afraid to at least take a risk. For the young people out there, shoot. If you fall on your face and you make nothing or you blow up, you will have time to recover. If you're in if you have families and things like that, yes, you might need to save some money and cut your expenses down. But that would be my tip, Jim, to anybody out there, is just try it out. What's the worst? Like my dad said to me when I was 19, what's the worst that can happen?
Yes.
You know, and that's always my philosophy.
Well, and you know, you have to say the upside of taking that risk and having success could be 10 times or 100 times the downside if you achieve that success. And I think oftentimes when you reach out on a limb, you're doing things that you're passionate about, and that's where you're going to find that success because you're enjoying the job, you're enjoying the project, and you're good at it, you know. So I appreciate you saying that. Like I mentioned, get off our butts, and that's BUT''S. Get out there and do something and make a difference. So let's talk a little bit more about your career as the time goes on here. You know, so you're running the painting business. What were some of your next steps from there? Because I'm really interested to hear about your book and how you wrote a book.
Yeah, so the book sounds, I hate to say it, but the book sounds a little bigger than it is. I got to write a chapter in a business book. It's called Local Business Maverick, and I'm very proud of it. The book became an Amazon bestseller, and so what I wrote the chapter on was actually systemization, which is kind of funny. We're talking about franchising and all that. And anybody that I coach as a business owner, I tell them, build your business as if it's a franchise, regardless if it's a franchise or not. So you want to build it to the point where, say you want to scale long-term, or you want to open up a second, third, fourth, 10th, 20th, whatever it is, it needs to be a duplicatable system, a duplicatable model. Mm-hmm. And you need to remove yourself. And I'm preaching to the choir here. You're a successful entrepreneur, but, you know, for me, it's basically helping people systemize and structure out their business. So I look at it from a perspective of, you need to have sales. You need to have a successful sales system, whatever that might look like, so you can generate leads and generate clients. But then the owner and the high-level executives in the company need to have a personal structure. So setting boundaries with their employees, making sure that they're actually having hobbies. They're not working 100 hours a week like a lot of entrepreneurs think you should. Because it'll hurt you long-term in burnout and all that. And then up to structure and systemization. So if you have sales, structure, and systems, that leads to scalability, sustainability, or potentially an exit strategy and sellability of your company. And so that was kind of what I initially started working on here this year. And so I got to write a chapter on kind of how I help people, help companies do that. It was awesome. I got asked to do it by a couple other entrepreneurs, and it's been great. But when I was after I ran the small painting company in college, I started up a small marketing company. And while I was running that marketing company, don't get me wrong, I also had other jobs. I took a regular internship like a college student would, just to protect myself, have a backup plan, and remove risk. So I worked really hard. I was still working 2 jobs. I was running my own company and working at 40 hours a week at a tech company in Chicago. And then I did sales jobs. I sold cell phones, copiers, and I was still running my business. But I ran a small marketing company on the side. And then later on in my career, I actually had a massive failure. My business collapsed on me. And this was after I dropped out of college, like I was telling you earlier. And I dropped out of college when I was a junior. I did eventually get my degree, but I was sitting there $50,000 in debt at the time, and really no ideas or opportunities to go start another company. So I called the company that I worked at as a freshman. I said, hey, I want to run a division. And then that's when I came back and started working with that company. And over the last 5 years, I grew a Maryland, D.C., and Virginia division from 0 to $2.6 million in revenue, and did that in my 20s. And I just sold the equity of that business this past year. And that's when I started doing kind of business coaching and going in my true passion, which is kind of high performance men's coaching, which is I can help people with business, but my true passion is really coaching people on how to live a happier, healthier, wealthier life. And that's kind of where I'm at now in my, at least in my career. I'm also on the side. It's funny, kind of back to that. I'm also on the side right now, either going to be doing, working with, there's 2 companies I'm talking to currently, and kind of back to my old philosophy when I was younger of having a backup plan just in case. I'm going to be either a director of sales, VP of sales, kind of here in Maryland for, there's 2 companies I'm discussing. One's a management consulting firm. The other one's a tech company. Mm-hmm. And, and then run this on the side until I make it a viable play for me long term. And so I was, that's kind of my philosophy is even if you have to work a little extra and have a side hustle and protect yourself on both sides, that's kind of what I'm doing now. So that's kind of where my career has taken me.
It really feels like you're creating your own destiny on the path that you want to take, regardless if that's one company or two, or owning one, working for somebody else in the other part of your day. But you've managed to put together a puzzle that works for you and has created what seems to be sustainability and a lifestyle that you want, both financially, personally, and with your family, if I'm hearing you right.
Yeah, I think where you're going with this, Jim, and I think it's true, is that it's just like fitness per se. Everyone thinks there's a diet that fits you, and and everyone's different. Everyone has a different body type. I think the same thing goes for people. I think that there are some people that don't need to start a business, but they could go into a company and be an entrepreneur and kick ass and grow that business and be you don't need to be the pitcher or the linebacker on the team. You can be the freaking the center on the team and still be a successful football player. So I think that's where you're kind of going with this, is that I think everyone out there, you just got to figure out what your lane is. And don't pigeonhole yourself, but find out what your lane is. Some people should need to be the A player, and that's okay. That's how I've kind of always been myself. But it's okay sometimes to step back and say, you know what, I won't be the quarterback on this team. I'll be the tight end, and I'm going to catch some passes from the quarterback and make sure that we score a couple touchdowns. And you can find massive success that way as well, and I think everyone's slightly different in terms of, what they should be doing. And I think it's just figuring out what makes you the happiest, really, and getting to is kind of my philosophy.
I think that's really important what you just said there, is what makes you the happiest. I went through an exercise personally about, maybe 3 months ago, where I started looking at what does retirement look like for me. Of course, I'll probably always work, but what does that look like for me? How much money do I need? Where do I live? What components, how many vacations do I want to take a year? And what does that look like from a dollar perspective? And I worked backwards into a work life that I'm currently leading today. And it surprised me at how fast I was able to achieve those numbers that put me into that retirement zone in 5 years, in the house that I want to be in, doing all the things I want to do, just by working backwards and going, wow, that's the number I need to make. And then all of a sudden, as you start putting that out there in the universe, it starts coming to you. I got a call from somebody who goes, I don't know why, Jim, I was just thinking about you. I really wanted you to be on this project with me. Are you available? I'm like, wow, I was just envisioning adding a couple of clients, and here this guy shows up. And I think to your point is what makes you happy and what your needs are. You can put that puzzle together, right?
Oh, yeah. And you hit it right in the head there, is that what I found is that exercise you did. It's funny that you brought that up. I did the same thing this year, which is awesome. And I realized I don't know why, but I always had this large number in mind. Obviously, I still want to make a lot more money, but I had this crazy number, and I was like, what if I had the perfect life? What would I want in it? Kind of like what you were describing. If I had the perfect lifestyle, everything was perfect, what would that look like financially?
Yeah.
And the number actually surprised me. It was a lot lower than I thought it was going to need to be.
Yeah.
And then it hit me. I'm like, great, it's not going to be as hard to get to where I want to be. And yes, I still want to make millions and blah, blah, blah. But it's like, no, you don't have to make $100 million to be happy. Honestly, most people can be very happy if they made, 200, 300 grand. Now, again, I know that not everyone out there, well, actually everyone out there can make that.
Yeah.
But most people can live a dream life at 200, 300,000 combined income between their significant other. And when I saw that, I started doing the math. I'm like, whoa. And I was like, okay, so how do I get to that, what my goal is? It might be a little different than that, but I'm like, how do I get there faster? Yeah, I might need for 2-3 years, I might need to work for someone else to have two incomes. But then long term, okay, I remove one of those later on because you save money and you live below your means a little bit, and you invest some money here, you invest some money there. And I think it's just, it's a cool, I think everyone should sit down and figure out, okay, if I live, what do I want in my life? What kind of food do I want to eat? What house do I want? And I'm not saying don't dream. I'm not saying don't, think about, I want the beach house worth, $5 million. That's great. But is that really going to make you happy? And if the answer is no, what will make you happy? And can you live in a smaller home? Can you get a $500,000 house close